Welcome to Grandma Africa Tales.
Located in the Soka forest in Ibadan, Oyo State, Nigeria, the dilapidated building known as the Ibadan House of Horror, or Soka, is believed to have served as a site for ritual sacrifice and people trafficking. On March 22, 2014, a group of motorcycle taxi drivers who had organized an impromptu search party in response to the disappearance of a driver in the region found the building. My esteemed friends, before I continue, please give me a heart, like this video and subscribe to this channel to support me. While several body parts, decaying corpses, and victim personal belongings were discovered nearby, only 8 survivors were pulled from the building. It is thought that mysterious kidnappers and ritualists in the state, who are frequently paid by some wealthy Nigerians and politicians who perform human flesh rites, organized the actions that took place in the jungle. The horrific site was the Soka woodland near the Lagos-Ibadan Expressway, where on the March 22nd, the disfigured, decaying bodies of numerous abducted victims were found. Numerous people are swarming the woodland, which has turned into a mecca, in an attempt to get a sight of the place where many kidnapped victims were held for over 10 years in 40-foot containers. Kidnappers have been active in the state for the past 10 years, taking their victims and keeping them in the forest where they tortured and in some cases brutally murdered. Some of the victims did not survive to tell their stories, while others who were rescued appeared disheveled and malnourished. A few of the people that were saved were close to dying from starvation. As help from the police and community people arrived, one of them fell and passed away instantly. The recovered victims described the terrifying experiences they went through at the hands of their kidnappers. Some claimed they were made to consume gari mixed with feces. Others claimed they turned into cannibals and started consuming human remains. The stories of the arrested women who said they were made to sleep with the other male victims and that after becoming pregnant, their babies were snatched from them and pounded in a wooden pot while they were made to see the goring death of their offspring, were even more horrific. Numerous people have continued to visit the woodland since its discovery. The majority of them are searching for missing family members. Have you had a kidnap, or one chance, or any similar experience? Would you like to share your story anonymously with us? Comment story. Upon visiting the jungle, they discovered human hair, bones, limbs, and 2 skulls scattered across the area, along with dried blood. The visitors had unrestricted access to the forest, despite the police officers being stationed far away from the crime scene. This altered a major crime scene that forensic investigators would have used to solve the mystery surrounding the deaths of numerous missing people across the nation. More than 50 human skulls, according to a source, were removed and buried in the forest. Locals complained that forensics and a complete autopsy should have been performed before such a mass burial, expressing their disgust at the Oyo government for hastily burying scores of dead remains in a mass grave. The Oyo State Police spokesperson, Superintendent of Police, Bisi Nwobi Ilobanafo, described how the police found the evil forest. He said that while they were looking into a case involving 2 missing men who had allegedly been lured to the Soka community, they were shocked to find an abandoned building in the forest where hostages were being held. A discovery at the Sanyo area of the state was reported to the command of the Oyo State Police. A commercial motorcycle rider once accompanied a close friend to the Bodija region of the state, but while there, he noticed that his cell phone was incessantly ringing, forcing him to pull over and answer it. After dropping off the passenger at Bodija, the commercial biker phoned his brother to go on with him to the Soka area so they could go and pick up the man who had called. This is how the caller instructed the commercial motorcyclist to come to the Soka area to pick him up. After they moved to Soka, the family didn't hear from the 2 of them. Following their wait, the family members set out to find the 2 men. However, when they arrived at the Ogumpa River Bridge in Sanyo, they noticed a motorcycle beneath it. This led the family members to surmise that the men had likely been involved in an accident. They reported this to the police station and the motorcycle was retrieved. After a long time, the family members who had been searching for the missing guys discovered several people on the chains. When the police arrived, they had already begun removing people from chains. They had also contacted the local government's head and other authorities. When they were freed, some of the people ran away, but the police discovered 7 people there. Sadly, one of them passed away right away. The victims were transported to the Adeoyo hospital by the police with help from the head of the local government. The victims appeared emaciated, undernourished, and like living skeletons. After searching the area, they discovered bags, clothing, shoes, and human bones, all stored in various containers. SP Ilobanafo further stated that after being detained by the police, one Abidin admitted that he had been hired by one Musibao to take care of the victims who had been abducted. The family of the missing men reported hearing people yelling, "Please give us water! Please give us water!" as they approached the scene. We believe that if people in the area can hear those pleading for aid, then these security guards should have heard the cry. For this reason, we have detained them. They are helping us with our investigation when we search them and find 2 guns, a single barrel and a double barrel gun, as well as an arrow and cutlasses on them. The 2 men who rode a commercial motorcycle to the region are still unaccounted for, according to our source, despite the police claiming to have rescued 7 people from the terrible woodland. Upon visiting the demonic forest, the state governor, Abiola Ajimobi, expressed horror over the occurrence and gave the order for the decomposing corpses found in the forest to be buried in mass. The governor also issued orders for land confiscation and building demolition in the forest. However, the police high command quickly intervened and stopped the demolition exercise so that forensics could begin. During her visits to the forest, Zone 11 Assistant Inspector General of Police Femi Omolaja gave assurances that those responsible will face consequences. When our journalists visited the Adeoyo Hospital, a ward housing the rescued victims was being treated. The victims were malnourished and in need of medical attention. Some of the victims got out of bed to stand by the barred mosquito net window so they could watch the crowd, because they too wanted to be noticed. Even though they were too weak to speak, some of them seemed to enjoy their attention because they would reach out and touch no one in particular. After a while, they would return to their beds and then stroll back outside to observe the crowd. However, several victims, particularly the female victims, did not get out of bed. A few of them covered themselves with wrappers. 14 victims, 5 of them were women, were pulled from the forest and taken to the hospital according to hospital sources. Aside from the medication, the hospital is testing the patients for HIV or AIDS and other illnesses according to hospital sources who asked to remain anonymous. Fortunately, some rescuers' relatives had identified them and were trying to get them hospital dismissed. But in another case, it was Wale Suleiman Ola, one of the fatalities, who identified his older sister and called to her. As soon as Wale's family read his name in the newspaper, they traveled from Ikorodu in Lagos State. The picture the sister was holding was of Wale, aged 15, with his 2 brothers. Wale's mother, Mrs. Sikinat, declared, "Wale is my son. He vanished 14 years ago since the year 2000. He announced his intention to visit Ajale. It had been a day since we last saw him. We filed a police report and searched everywhere for him. We believed him to be dead. After reading the newspaper, my daughter informed me that Wale might still be alive and that we should visit the Adeoyo hospital to see him. We carried a picture of him and his 2 siblings. He approached us and beckoned to his sister as we stood at the window where they were held. Our eyes were so unbelievable to us. I nearly passed out. When we showed him the photo, all he was doing was staring at it and gazing at his sister. I'm grateful for my son's survival. I can't believe my Wale is still alive, and I've been dancing and praising to God. I cried seeing him. He needed all the love and care in the world because he was in such a horrible situation." In addition, Adenike Adeniyi's family, who was among the rescued casualties, visited the hospital to pay their respects. She claimed she couldn't recall any of her family members despite them calling her Bisi. According to a family member who spoke with our journalists, Nike was abducted 7 months ago in the state's Okebola region. That day, she went shopping, but that was the last time we saw her. She appeared really slender and unkempt. After her treatment, the hospital advised us to submit a police record so we could take her home. Although the mother is unable to travel to the hospital, everyone is relieved that she is still alive. She doesn't appear well. After reading the article and seeing her photo in the paper, we hurried to the hospital. She appears extremely underweight and undernourished. However, some attendees were upset because they were unable to locate their missing loved ones at the reunion. I came to the hospital to see if I could find my niece, called Toyin, stated an elderly woman who asked to remain anonymous. In 2011, Toyin was employed at a bank. Nevertheless, she vanished from sight one day. Since then, we have been searching for her. Toyin was a stunning woman who was adored by many. Her mother suffered a heart attack because she was unable to handle the anguish of losing such a gifted child as Toyin. Since then, she has been immobilized. I hope Toyin is one of the rescued victims. She is not one of the rescued victims, despite my hopes and prayers that she would be. Toyin isn't here, so I was hoping to deliver the good news to her bedridden mother. A youth corps member traveled from Kwara State with his brother Jide in order to search for a missing sibling. The family has been inconsolable since one of their brothers, Akin, vanished last year, according to Jide. After reading the article online, we decided to leave our base in Kwara State in order to determine whether or not he was one of the rescued victims. We're being asked to bring a police report by the hospital management. He vanished a few months before his wedding and no one has heard from or seen him since. We ask God to be here and we hope and pray for him. Bola, a homemaker, claimed to be at the Adeoyo hospital in search of her sister who had gone missing. 12 years ago, my sister Fadeke vanished from her presence. She is not one of the victims they recovered, as you can see by my tears. I'm delighted for the families that got to see their departed loved ones. My sister isn't here. And even though I've been at the hospital for 2 days, I wish I could see her too. However, several locals who spoke with our correspondent expressed happiness that their family members who had been abducted had managed to leave the wicked woodland. Nonetheless, they demand that the government investigate the state's rising number of kidnapping instances. My friend was kidnapped last year, claimed a lady identifying herself as Ruth. In Bodija, she was purchasing petrol at a gas station when a group of guys pushed her into her vehicle. This happened in the afternoon around 3:30 p.m. They took her car and drove her to the Soka forest, but the herbalists they encountered there turned them around, telling them she had a powerful spiritual force guarding her. They drove her to the outskirts of Ibadan, leaving her to fend for herself, but she hurried to the side of the road and cried out for aid. Had God not intervened, she might have died or become one of these victims today. These kidnappers have been on the loose throughout the state, making life miserable for the people they take. She was so shocked that she had to leave the country for a while. Though it has always occurred in the states, the past 2 years have seen an awful increase in kidnappings. The government must establish a special unit to investigate missing person cases seriously because, in the absence of the Soka forest, it would not have taken the government's concerns seriously. The state's search for missing people continues, and locals are expressing their outrage over the discovery of the evil forest. The locals are holding mad people responsible for both the kidnapping and the presence of the demonic forest, according to an investigation. But after spotting a supposedly madman with 4 tongues and other human parts, the locals are venting their rage on mad people. When our correspondent visited the state's challenge, Ring Road, and Molete neighborhoods, she witnessed locals attacking people who appear to be mad. On March 26th, a group of people questioning a suspected madwoman on Challenge Road nearly linked her. The insane woman who was being questioned by a man about what was inside her polythene bag, but she was unable to answer and appeared confused. While some were calling for the insane woman to be burned, another young man was observed covering her head with an old tire. However, the police pulled her back. This woman and others claiming to be lunatics are fronting for the kidnappers who took people to the Soka forest. A woman was heard saying, "Some of them act like they are mad, but they are not. They pick on people while sitting in public," pointing them out to their kidnapping gang members afterwards. The attack on lunatics tragically took a more hazardous turn when a suspected mad person was allegedly burned to death on March 26th in the state's Ring Road area. Some of these crazy people are also the ones who kill people for rituals. The mob claim to have discovered 4 human tongues, foreign currency, and other human parts on the insane man, leading them to believe that he was a human parts dealer. Additionally, on March 28 at around 10:30 p.m., locals in the state's Smollett neighborhood attacked a man who was thought to be insane at the police post in front of the Omolabanke house. Despite the obvious wounds, the residents repeatedly struck the insane man who was bleeding heavily with a hammer and stone. According to a resident, the madman was ambushed after young boy discovered multiple identity cards in his possession that belonged to other individuals. An eyewitness said, "I just witnessed some local youngsters running after the insane man and stealing the plastic bag he was carrying. Upon opening the bag, they discovered multiple identity cards inside. At that moment, they also noticed handsets. After pushing the madman to the ground, they began beating him all over his body and on his head with a hammer, stick, and stones while yelling, 'Ritualist, human part dealer.' More people joined them. Some begged them to turn the man over to the police, while others were only interested in filming and taking pictures. 'We will kill you before you and your gang take us to Soka Forest.' If not for the prompt arrival of a group of police officers of the Filele Division Police who arrived on the scene and removed the man, they would have killed him. After loading the man into their patrol van, the policemen departed. However, the authorities issued a warning to the populace to stop attacking insane people. According to SP Lobonafo, the command is concerned about the locals' disdain for crazy people and has issued a warning that anyone detained would have to face the full force of the law. Residents near the woodland said they noticed that some individuals resided here, but they were told that the victims were insane persons receiving treatment, while the police launched a manhunt for the offenders. The Oyo State Police Command also refuted claims that officers knew about the forest but took no action to stop it, saying it was a terrible sight. The existence of that location was unknown to the police. "We're not God. The police do not always appear to be present. Information is what we work with. Individuals ought to assist law enforcement agencies with important information. We invaded the area after learning about the woodland and made several arrests. The individuals we detained are now helping us with our investigation." Human rights attorney Leonard Iwoke responded to the revelation of the evil forest and the mass burial of victims by claiming that the Oyo State government had violated the residents' basic human rights by holding a mass burial without permitting the police to conduct an inquiry. First of all, from a legal perspective, this was barbarous, and when the authorities learned that it existed, it was discovered to be similar to the OKIJA Shrine in the state of Anambra. Therefore, before conducting a mass burial, the authorities ought to have carried those remains and invited forensic and medical professionals to examine them. The investigation will identify if the victims' family members are aware that their loved ones were slain there. People are state property, and the government is responsible for ensuring their welfare. The government ought to have left the police to do their job and find the people responsible for this heinous act. Perhaps this was the intention of the Oyo State government when they demolished the building. But the Criminal Code Act, Cap C38, Section 212, states that any house, grove, or place in which it has been customary to hold a trial by ordeal, which is unlawful of the vocation of any juju, which is prohibited by order, may with all the article be destroyed or erased. As a result, any demolition of the property by the government or anybody else must have a court order, failing which it is illegal. Barrister Iboke also said that residents may file a negligence lawsuit against the government if they believe that a deceased relative of theirs was interred in the forest. However, he stated that because Nigeria's judiciary lacks the independence to bring legal action against the administration, such lawsuits might not have a favorable outcome. Dr. Aige Okakume, a rehabilitation disability expert at the psychology department at the University of Ibadan, responded to the victims' horrific experiences by stating that they ought to receive rehabilitation. The victims must receive complete rehabilitation in order to acquire new skills. They will need to go through the recycling process and vocational training. The rehabilitation process should aim to reintegrate them into society, should be the goal of the rehabilitation process. They also require reorientation, Not only should they be given money, but they should also be taught how to use their mental faculties. If they wish to attend school, the government must assume responsibility and send them there. There, they can receive tutoring to acquire a new vocation. Their complete rehabilitation and ongoing supervision to guarantee their successful reintegration into society should fall under the purview of the government. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this video. I hope you enjoyed it. Until next time, bye-bye, my friends.